Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final episode of our new play read, The House of Rocks by Melissa Livingston. My name is Josh. I'm the executive director here at the Lake Dillon Theater Company, and I'm so excited to welcome back for our final episode the creative team of House of Rocks. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And thank you all for being here and for all the great work that you've done with this project. So why don't we just get started? Tell us your name, where you're zooming in from, and how are you involved in the project. Let's start with Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I am Rachel Dilliplane. I'm zooming in from Silverthorne, Colorado, where I am the production manager for Lake Dillon Theater Company. But for this reading, I had the privilege of performing as Blanche Russell.
Hi, I'm Gavin Mueller. I'm an actor located in Chicago. That's where I'm zooming in from. And I was able to play the role of Bill Russell.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Rowland. I'm also zooming in from Chicago, and I read for Claire, the waitress and woman narrator.
Hello, I'm Tom Green, zooming in from the West Village in New York City, the center of the coronavirus outbreak. And I read for Ziegfeld, the doctor, and the male narrator.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Whitmore. I'm the technical director for the Lake Dillon Theater Company, and I was the production supervisor for the show and the virtual technician for this production.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Livingston. I am the playwright and director of this. I'm also the artistic associate at Lake Dillon Theater Company. And I'm here in Dillon, Colorado.
Well, it's good to see you all and glad that you're staying healthy during this time. Thanks for joining in from wherever you are across the United States. Melissa, we'll start with you. How did you put together such a talented cast of people?
Well, a lot of these folks I know from other places and other work. Tom and I did 3 shows together back in Austin before I moved to California. I went to the University of California, Irvine with Gavin and Rebecca and have admired their work for years, think they're incredibly talented, but had not had the opportunity to work with them as actor-director. So it was exciting to get to bring them on board. And what a lot of people might not know about Miss Rachel Dilliplane is that when she thinks she's alone in the theater, she often sings. And so on many a late night, when she thinks everyone else is left, I often hear her singing. And the first time I heard her sing, I thought of this play that I'd been working on for a couple of years and thought, she's got the voice that would work for the lead character in this. So yeah, it's kind of fun to take people that I've known from all over the country and bring them together for this reading.
That's terrific. And Rachel, you do have such a beautiful voice for this show, but just in general. Now, as you mentioned, you've been working on this show for quite a few years, Melissa. And audiences may not know that it's actually inspired by true events. So tell us how you came across this story and then what inspired you to research it and make a play out of it.
So in 2015, I was moving from Texas to California to go to graduate school. And rather than just making a quick trip and doing it as fast as I can, decided to take some time and see the western half of our country. And I actually got to visit the south rim of the Grand Canyon and the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And on the way to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, near the Vermilion Cliffs in Arizona, we came across the ruins of these houses. It was these giant boulders that had settled at the base of the cliffs, and someone had built mud bricks and thatched roofs, and there were several buildings. And so we stopped, and there was a plaque that was very faded that told this brief story of this woman who was a Ziegfeld Follies dancer, and her husband got sick, and she gave up everything to travel across the country. And I just found it really inspiring. And so I took a bunch of pictures, and my very first thought was, this would make a great play. I also, as an artist, am very passionate about bringing women's stories to the stage. I think that we as Americans don't necessarily tell the history of the women that helped build this country. And so I was really struck by this really strong, amazing American woman, and someone who looked at what a lot of people would see as a blank canvas or nothing or harshness and saw the beauty in that and wanted to build something there. So that sort of started the passion of researching these people and writing this play.
Well, this play certainly has all of that. It has the history, it has compelling characters, it has a very strong, the character of Blanche is very strong. So let's talk a little bit about those characters. Rachel and Gavin, you guys, had to build these characters, build this relationship, and you had some really great chemistry despite not being in the same room or even in the same state. How did you work on connecting that, especially in those more emotional scenes? How did you work on connecting and building that relationship?
Yeah, well, it's like you said, it was difficult to find that connection ultimately, because as wonderful as Zoom is as a communication tool, it has hurdles of its own. We established pretty quickly that we would avoid Brady Bunch acting for this reading, because I don't know about you, but people are on all different sides of the screen at this point. But something that I like to remember about readings is it really is about an opportunity for the words to establish themselves and resonate, and for the playwright to hear them and to have their impact. So even if we'd been here in person for this reading, which would have been lovely, we probably would have been at music stands, we wouldn't have been off book, trying to connect and fall in love without actually kissing and standing at awkward 45-degree angles. So ultimately, it comes down to getting out of the way of the words and trusting your partner and the words to do a lot of that work for you. And I think Melissa starts off on a great foot with a good script to start with. But I'll let my better half answer what his experience was like.
Yeah, that's a really good point. At first, it was hard to fight the human impulse to look at myself on the screen, which we always do, look in mirrors or whatever. And then I found, like, during our first read of it, during rehearsal, that I would do that a lot. And I was like, this is holding me back. And then I checked that impulse and was like, all right, that's something I've been doing. And then I was like, all right, this is all about Rachel's little box now, and anything she gives me from that little box, whatever it is, that's what I'm going to focus on. And then I even switched my screen a little bit to make that easier. And that made all the difference for me, that taking what Rachel was giving me, and I guess that's the eternal acting note, right? Take what your partner is giving you and then react from that. But it was, that kind of made the switch for me. And with Zoom, I mean, there were distractions, but if I focused on that, it allowed us to create that connection, even if we've never met in real life.
Well, that's a great point. And you guys did such a great job for that. There were a lot of boxes on stage. Rebecca and Tom, you played lots of important characters as well. How did you create those different characters with some of these limitations that we have with this quote unquote box acting that we're dealing with?
Sure. So typically if I'm in a show where I'm playing multiple characters, one of the biggest tools in my toolbox is physicality and being able to differentiate through posture, the way that you move. And so of course in Zoom, that is kind of stripped away. So you just have to lean, I think, harder into the other tools that you have, like vocal tone. I tried to give Claire a little bit of an accent to make her feel a little bit different, but there's also ways that I was trying to play with cadences and rhythms of speaking. And then of course, just trying to make sure that you have a rich inner life for all of your different characters and know sort of why they're saying what they're saying. And that makes it easier to feel like you are different people. What do you think, Tom?
I agree with all that. There's no greater gift for someone who thinks of themselves as a character actor than to play multiple characters. And as I was reading this, I was also noticing that I've been watching a lot of Turner classic movies, which many of those movies take place kind of in this time period. And so for Ziegfeld and The Doctor especially, all those great movies from the 30s and 40s have like the impresario and then the very solemn doctor. So it was great to be able to channel some of those characters that I've been watching on the big screen and try to put them on the little screen here.
Well, and you nailed that tone and then that style of that era. It was really fun to watch. And Melissa, you created this. You had in mind, of course, putting this on stage, and yet our stage was different for this reading. How did you go about rehearsing for this particular, with this show, and then for this particular channel?
Well, it's a little bit interesting in that we only rehearsed we had basically a read through, and then I gave some notes after, and so and then we had some changes that we made at when we actually shot the actual footage, where I kind of went back and gave some notes. basically dealing a lot with timing and like how delays work. There's some, just being in 6 different locations, trying to get people to connect, trying to get dialogue to match up. There's some overlaps in the script, and there's some things that I felt like, as both the writer and the director, that it really needed to be rapid fire and back and forth. And so I feel like a lot of the direction for this was less about, let's talk about character and connections, and more about like the actual technical aspect of how this is going to work and how I'm going to hand this over to Ben and he's going to then put it together. So for me, coming from almost a completely theater background and having like dipped my toe in the film world just a little bit as a director, I found myself looking at it more like film directing and looking at what's the timing between this screen and this screen, and what's the, how's this going to be put together afterwards, and had to rely a lot on Ben actually, to kind of take over that technical aspect and put this together. And so I don't know, Ben, if you want to talk a little bit about what it was like for you to edit this and help me bring it together from the technical point of view.
Sure. So it's a little different than building a physical set and we're creating a world that way. But this had its own challenges and did feel very much like piecing together a film, which I have a little bit of experience doing, and I'm getting a lot more lately, working for the theater from my home. And one of the things we had to that I chose to focus on, we could have done a whole bunch of cuts and focuses and just bring into focus the screens of the characters that are talking, and sort of gray everybody else out. But being that this was really a staged reading done on a virtual platform, I decided to sort of keep it just what we see on our screens, where everyone's there and everyone's present the whole time. Someone who's not with us today, Christina Schmidt, she had some other obligations with her job, but she was reading the stage directions, and as you all saw, that was certainly very helpful. And that's very much what it's like in a in-person staged reading as well. Someone's reading the stage directions and carrying those things out. So while we added music and in the third portion added some of the visuals that I felt were very important to the show, we decided to make some of those choices in an effort to capture in a virtual world what it would be like if we were all sitting around together reading a script together.
Well, and I think that was super effective in episode 3, actually getting to see those images that you put, that you included in the piece. Now, as our industry is sort of navigating what this pandemic has meant for theater, we may be looking at doing more of this type of virtual programming. So I want to ask the actors, what is one takeaway that you had from this experience that you think you might take with you should you have an opportunity to do another virtual reading or performance? Tom, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's so great to be able to try to make something of this madness we're living through. And in this case, it was tremendous. I mean, I know Melissa from my past. I don't know anybody else on this screen or that was involved. And to see us as actors and theater people reach across the country, read something, make something of it, and put it out there. That's not something we would have done in December. And now we're doing it now. So that's just a plus. And let's take what we can.
That's great.
Sort of similarly, I am just really struck by the resilience of the theater community and theater artists. And, like everybody else, we're adapting the best that we can to a really strange circumstance, but we are still here and we're still committed to telling these important stories. And it definitely makes you appreciate the sort of connection that you get being able to be in a space with audiences. Definitely will never take that for granted again.
Yeah, having been in this and been in the audience for a few other Zoom productions, initially I felt like it would be just theater, but less than, but it has not felt like that in any of these. It just feels different. I've seen so many new things that I've never seen before, and I see people taking this in stride and just trying new things, and new things are happening that haven't happened before. So it's creating new art as opposed to something less than, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, I can only really echo everything everybody's already said. Just what a relief it was to have something to look forward to and enjoy, and to flex the creative muscles again. But like Rebecca was saying, definitely can't ever take for granted gathering together. A bittersweet feeling I have about all of this is, yeah, it's great that we're able to come together and do this, but there's really no substitute for coming together as an audience or as an ensemble. And as sad as that is, it also gives me hope for how necessary it's going to be in the future, and that when all of this is over, we're going to want to be together, and I can't wait.
Well said. Innovation and connection, all of that through telling this really remarkable story. For our final question, I want to ask everyone, just in one sentence, what is one thing you hope that our audiences at the Lake Dillon Theater take away from joining you in this story of the House of Rocks? Let's start with Ben.
Sure. I really hope that people get that, even an inkling of the feeling of being together and sharing a story. It's what we are. We're storytellers. And I, for one, am planning on, when we're able to travel again, going to the Vermilion Cliffs and seeing the Cliff Dweller Lodge.
The sentence I came up with, it may sound trite, but it's love conquers all. And whether it's in today's time of a coronavirus or in another time when it was consumption and tuberculosis, it does if you trust it. And that's the message of this play for me, and it's a beautiful one.
Yeah, similarly, life doesn't always go the way that we think it's going to, but with determination and your loved ones, you can really create a new and beautiful life out of the ashes of what you expected your life to look like.
Yeah, that even when everyone tells you no, that the tiniest sliver of hope can be enough to get you through anything.
For me, the sentence I take away from this is, wherever you are, sing, dance, get fresh air and sunshine.
I think that the thing I hope people take away is a message of hope, and that also there are amazing stories everywhere. And if you leave yourself open to them, you will find how amazing humanity is and how resilient people are. And I think that's a great message, and for every day, but especially for us to hold on to today.
Well, beautifully said, Melissa, and everyone. Thanks so much, everyone. Ben, Tom, Rebecca, Gavin, Rachel, Melissa, also Christina Schmidt for being a part of this production. And thank you all of you who are watching from home and have joined us for this journey of House of Rocks. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed it. Spread the word, share with your friends, and we'll see you back online at the Lake Dillon Theater Company for more virtual programming. Thank you all, and be well.
Don't forget to subscribe and check out www.lakedillontheater.org for all of our online content.